Hello, lighthearted rainbow tribe. Here we are in the midst of the beautiful opening of the stargate of the spring equinox. It will be exact tonight, tomorrow morning, 3:19 Mountain Time. And, it's been pretty incredible so far. Yesterday's gathering was wonderful, and I look forward to sharing with you here in a moment. And so we come to our moment of silence, 1 minute at one for the one, as we play it in this year of oneness, 2017. And it's a beautiful opportunity to listen. The importance of listening cannot be overstated. It's a key to everything. So I hope you will take this moment to, in the silence, listen. Listen deeper, not to the contents of your mind, not to the emotions that can all be here, not to the sensations or the information coming in through your senses, but listen deeper. Come to listen down in to the withinness. And even deeper, as you settle in there, allow your awareness to drop into the planet and listen to your mother. All right, dear ones, our moment of silence. Hey. Whirling around. circling, whirling from the still point center, like a whirling dervish. Listening. And deep listening. It's a hearing without reaching. It comes from a resting, a deep resting in peace. R.I.P. Pun intended. So, in a sense, in a shamanic sense, in a mystical sense, one has died to oneself, one's thoughts, one's feelings, one's bodily life, and to the external realm. Is renounced all of that, and is turning deep, deep within, to where the inner silence pervades consciousness. And without striving, without reaching, without trying to hear something, just open, just being present, here, hearing occurs. What is sometimes referred to as the still small voice can speak, can impart its wisdom, its presence. I have been taking a class at the Durango Dharma Center called Conscious Parenting. What a fun thing to do. And the textbook that we're using is called Listen. And it's a parenting book. It's teaching about listening. And it's missing this dimension that I'm speaking to. The class isn't entirely missing it because the teacher is a Dharma teacher. I mean, she brings that presence with her. And what I find in this exploration of what happens when children are listened to, and not only listened to such that their system feels held and connected with and able to discharge its distress. Remember the distressed disguises that we talked about the other day. We all have distress. And we all need that silent partner within to listen. But we have to make contact with it. We have to make that connection. And that's what listening does. The sense of being heard, of listening. Contact, connection, communion, union. So many of us hear, even when we're not trying. We hear the pain and suffering of the collective. And we hear the cries of the planet. And just like a child, the inner children we all have, the child of the presence that we all are, and the child of the presence of life that the planet is. The ability of the presence to listen to it all from within the realm of silent awareness is what brings the big medicine, really big medicine, B-I-G, by infinite grace. So much of what we face as a human tribe is beyond our ability to fix. I mean, many of the scientists will tell you that the environment and the situation on the planet has gone beyond remedy. Not all of them believe that, but some of them are saying it's too late. We can't reverse this anymore. It's when we recognize these places that come in our own spiritual journey, that come in our life of relationship with parents and spouses and children, where we can't do it anymore. And this is true of our relations with all life, with the species that are being extinguished and made extinct, exterminated, with the health and the vitality of the planet being so drastically impinged. We begin to recognize the communication of distress. It was so beautiful up at Standing Rock, where they took the American flag and hung it upside down, and how that got recognized as a distress signal. Democracy is in distress. It's all but gone. Our planet is in distress. We as a species are in distress. It's all interrelated. The planet's distress is my distress is the planet's distress. Our society, our social structures, when they are in distress or they're creating distress, because many of them, as I've said, are institutionalized racism, they cause distress. Anything that's of separation is distressful to us because it's not natural. And so just like a child who communicates their distress through their behavior, we recognize everyone is communicating their distress in one way or another. A whole lot of distress going on. And we recognize it's the distress disguise of the essential that is harm-free, that is never upset or distressed, that remains in its peaceful abidance. And we're calling forth that calm abiding within ourselves by making contact with silence and stillness every day. It's essential to our well-being. And the capacity to listen to that stillness, still, small, almost it's inaudible. The silence is thunderously speaking, but to the busy, busy mind listening to itself constantly, small voice. And the beautiful gift that came with our unfolding yesterday in meditation and exploration was allowing our awareness to open up in a silent listening to include the planet. And after the penetration into the heart of the planet, the expansion out into the inclusiveness and embracing of all of the planet, the experience of the vibrant aliveness as the green fire of spring emerging out of the what has been the cold earth and the dark of what has been held within this winter. As all of that was coming forth until our consciousness was expanded out into the atmosphere of the earth. And we felt the entirety of her being. We listened. And we attended to the places among the people and the planet that were suffering. So we recognized that the expression of earthquakes and storms and tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, all of these weather systems and physical symptoms are distress signals, signaling us it's not okay. I'm not okay. We're not in connection. That's what a child is signaling in their distressed action. We're not in connection. And after they discharge that distress as a result of being connected with, listened to deeply, allowed to be as they are, and let their system discharge in tantrums or shaking or crying or whatever it is that needs to happen, and they're held and they're stayed with, as we stay listening, recognizing that the presence is at work and that everything that's been created is a self-healing, self-regulating, dynamic, open system. We don't need to fix it. Just like little kids, just like our systems, the system of the planet is perfectly capable of self-regulation and healing. It's innate. It's inborn. It's I mean, this is what's pointed to when people use this word ecology. So we have a deep spiritual ecology in our own system, in our own bodies, that when that's functioning is fantastic. And it's the same thing with our planet. I was reflecting on, this diagnosis that's getting a lot of press lately called leaky gut syndrome. And I was watching as, the current government that we have, feels like, immigration is like a leaky gut. And all of these external, foreign substances are getting in here where they're not wanted. I don't know who doesn't want them, but somebody doesn't want them. And if only we would heal our own distressed, leaky guts, that this situation would resolve itself. We'd have a sensible and sane and caring and kind and functional immigration system. Allowing refugees refuge. Because we're finding our own inner refuge in the presence. Yeah. Allowing people who want the chance at a new life to come and make their contributions here. Bring new blood in. Yeah. With all of the appreciation and love for being able to leave where they couldn't make life work. There's so many places on the planet that aren't able to make life work, and it's happening in our country now too. We're getting into an increasingly unworkable societal situation. So we watch the structures come down, all of these structures that have been in place pretty much since World War II. Some of them are from further back than that, but from the Depression time, from the recovery from the Depression. Lots of things were instituted in our society to support the people who live here. And all of those structures are being dismantled. And if you're really paying attention, the structures of democracy are being dismantled at the same time. And it's quite dismaying. And we feel in distress. Many of us feel deeply in distress. And the thing that's really interesting is that the people who voted for change were experiencing being in deep distress, unheard, unlistened to, disconnected, and they were dismissed. Ignorant, uneducated, they don't know what they're talking about. And so, of course, they had their chance to say, we do. We want change. We want something different. We want to be in charge now, and now we're not listening to you. So that's not going to work either. Obviously. Obviously. So listening and making conscious contact, both within to the presence where the big medicine comes from, and being established in that such that when we're listening to the planet, when we're listening to our fellow human beings, when we're listening to the species around the planet that are in distress because their whole habitat is being is in a state of upheaval, just like our society is in a state of upheaval, just like the planetary expressions of distress in these superstorms now. They're not just storms anymore. She's in big distress, so we're having superstorms. Our internal weather system, our weather system as a collective emotional state of humanity, and the planetary system. I mean, she's responding to us, we're responding to her. This communication is going on. And people who are oblivious to this are not only missing out on an incredibly rich life, but are ignorantly contributing to the distress. And their dismissiveness of people who can't help themselves but to be open to this is disconnection. Not listening, disconnection, distress. And you can make an equation. Not listening, disconnection equals distress. So our remedy, our beautiful remedy, which is right here, right now, always available, comes from the ability to get quiet, to be able to rest, to let everything be as it is, to turn within, to let go of the externals, not only the externals of our world, but the externals of our own thinking, ceaseless thinking, problem solving, reviewing, evaluating. Oh my God, the activity of the mind is endless. And to just let that be, just let that be out here. And all of the emotions that are stirred up that go with that, let them be, but let them be out here. And all of the whatever's going on in the body, if it's own distresses, it's illness, it's earthquakes, it's tsunamis, it's eruptions of various kinds. For the time being, let them all be, that we might open within and let the presence have access. And that's the key to our freedom. That's the sense of withness, of Emmanuel, of the presence of this, that it only is with us. A lot of people know this, they believe it, they wander around, it's true, the presence is with me. It's not felt, it's not directly experienced. Something happens and boom, they're in total distress. Why? Not feeling listened to. Not feeling in contact and connection, let alone communion or union. No resource, no sense of resilience, of confidence, of trust, of, it's all going to be okay, because this is on the scene. And this comes on the scene, accessing it through us. We are the instruments and vehicles for this to come to ground and be here. I say this pretty much every day. Listen up. I have this beautiful thing about SOL, which to me is also a word that means sun. So we're speaking to the radiance of this lighthearted being, right? The inner radiant shining of this love that we are coming forth. But, you know, so our joke is SOL, which, you know, out of luck. You supply the S word. S, out of luck. And so when we are SOL, we know what it is. We're out of connection. We're out of connection within, and we're out of connection with one another, and we're out of connection with our planet. And I distinguish between the planet and the human world, especially the human world that's made by mental structures born of separation. The world that I mentioned the other day that we are in but not of. Because in our awakened state, or in our conscious contact, connection, communion, and union, we're not of the world of disconnection. And in certain places in our experience, it all disappears into the beautiful, essential, limitless, boundless dimensions of being. And then the love that comes forth from there, it's beyond comprehension. It's so wondrous, and we find ourselves naturally extending out all-inclusively. Our consciousness just is open into its natural and inherent vastness, all-encompassing of the whole universe, let alone this little planet. And suddenly the planetary distress, the species distress, the societal nonsense, the numbers of ignorant and unawakened, disconnected, distressed disguises that are out there mucking about with things. Piece of cake. We love them. We love them as ourselves. We forgive them. We forgive them 70 times 7. We forgive them in the past generations. We forgive them in the present. We forgive all the future generations that are coming forth out of this insanity. The whole thing. And it's not us doing it. It's the natural movement of our true nature. So there may be some particular thing that catches our awareness. Yesterday for me it was some article that I read about what's happening with the healthcare. And it definitely triggered off distress in my system. Signaling, there's a disconnection here. These people who are doing this to our healthcare system are disconnected. They don't get what it takes to take care of people. Oh gosh. You know, in the recognition, you know, I think the new person who's the head of Medicaid for the country, right? They should all get jobs and pay premiums. I mean, what world is she living in? And I recognize that whatever world that is, I am not of that world. And so I had to take my distress to the great listening partner of the presence with us, the Emmanuel within. Because it's too big a problem for me. I mean, I speak to my representatives, but they're also not listening. They may say so. They send me nice little emails saying, got your, your message, and here's what I'm doing, and here's what I think, and here's all the good reasons why I'm doing it. And I listen, and I go, yeah, I just don't see it that way. Not at all. Not for a second. And those on the other side have felt the same way. So how are we to get beyond this conundrum where we are a divided nation? and not quite at war with one another, at least not outwardly, except for in some communities where we are at war with each other. Very seriously. I don't want to kid about that. And there is a class war. There is a racial war. And there's an economic war. And it's very hard for us to tolerate the level of distress that we experience. And it triggers, places in our own history where we have felt disconnected, unheard, unseen. And so that old distress can come forward. Distress from our childhood. As none of us had a perfect one. I'm not sure one exists. And different degrees of unfinished business and distress from our childhood, from not being tended to accurately because our parents didn't have the information, they weren't resourced, they didn't know. So beautifully this information is coming forward now. I highly recommend to everybody this book called Listen. It will help immeasurably. It really does. If you open into it, it reaches far beyond eliminating, the conflicts and distresses between parent and children. Just listening. Listening to my inmost heart. This beautiful presence, loving beingness. Listening to my fellow human beings in all different states and stages of realization of who we are and what is actual. From completely disconnected to profoundly unified. In the realization and the recognition, all is this already. I'm not blind, deaf, and dumb to the suffering. I'm, as the presence, deeply connected to and listening to it. And the responsiveness that comes up and out of my essence every day in my, whatever we call it, I call it lighthearted actualizing, because this is actualizing itself every instant, every moment. And listening to the distress calls and letting this respond to it in its perfection, in its knowingness. And allowing myself to be used as an instrument and vehicle for this to come forth in whatever way it chooses. It's not of my doing. And so as always, I'm here to support anyone and everyone who is interested in realizing this. And we will continue to meet, to gather, to explore and discover, to listen, to discover how to be quiet, how to rest in peace, and how to be so deeply attuned with this vibrant, radiant aliveness that we lose our distressed disguise. And we are unveiled as the glory of the presence that is only here. Yeehaw. Thank you as always. So good to be with you, listening. May peace be among all being of the planet. May all of the merit of the blessings of this gathering go forth from us out into the unified field, into the light worker grid, into the collective, and into the planet. Also in need of being known, they are heard and responded to. With love, with kindness, with deep appreciation for the truth of the matter. Have a great equinox, and we'll see you tomorrow on the day.